obviously, this week has been dominated by one big story, and that has been MJF's saga from before Double or Nothing all the way through this most recent episode of Dynamite. We will start back before Double or Nothing when it was reported that MJF was not at the AEW Fan Fest. There were reports some people were seeing him in the casino. Apparently, all of AEW representation, security stuff, they just couldn't get a hold of him. There were then reports that he was booking a flight out of Vegas. It was all very, very iffy whether or not he was actually going to show up to the pay-per-view. Now, he did indeed show up to the pay-per-view. He wrestled his match against Wardlow, but he told Sean Ross Sapp himself, that he had showed up at the last minute, went, did the job, and left immediately thereafter. And shortly after that, PWI reported that it was expected he probably wasn't going to be on TV for several episodes, perhaps even longer. Now, apparently, sometime between then and Dynamite, Tony Khan and MJF met up, hashed something out, whether that is they were able to raise his pay and agree something on that, or at least agreed to work on this as a storyline and continue to work behind the scenes. But either way, MJF was on Dynamite this past week, where he just took a blowtorch to Tony Khan for 8 minutes. So if you haven't seen that promo, I highly recommend it. It's probably the best promo in the company's history. It was unbelievable. But James, obviously this all stems from MJF's displeasure with his contract. He doesn't feel that he's being paid enough, especially to where he is on the card, in the ratings, what he does for the company. The man wants more money, and this is his way of going about getting it.
Let's go over certain things. One, MJF is a draw. He always delivers, whether it's in the ring, whether it's on the mic. He is, without a doubt, AEW's top prospect for the future. We talk about all the pillars, we talk about all the talent that they have for the future, and there is undoubtedly a lot of those guys who we could see carrying the company for years to come. But there's one guy above all who just shows he reeks of that star appeal. He reeks of charisma, and that's MJF. He, I'm sure, is worth more than the contract that he currently has. But the thing to remember is that contract was signed when he was nobody, when he was an indie guy who didn't have a name and was proving himself for the first time.
I should cut in really quick, and Wade Keller has reported that MJF has gotten a raise since his initial contract.
Yes.
But it's still nowhere near the level that A, he thinks he should be at, or B, to the level of certain recent signees in AEW, mainly the ex-WWE guys he called out on Wednesday.
And I'm sure that's true. I am sure that there are guys that have come in since him who have better contracts than he does. But the truth is, they bring their own value. They do. And I want MJF to make the money he deserves. I truly, in my heart of hearts, give him the bank, because he will be carrying that company for years and years to come. He's only 26. We haven't even reached the peak of his potential. We haven't even gotten near it yet. And that's terrifying to think about, considering how good he is now. But we are way away from how good he will be. And yeah, let him get his money. But a Bryan Danielson, who might not be at the top of the card consistently, has more than put in his work, and his value speaks for itself. CM Punk, the biggest draw in AEW, more than speaks for itself. Sure, there are other guys like maybe a Keith Lee or an Adam Cole who you could say, what is their value in relation to MJF? But they've all built their names over years and years and have earned their contracts, even if they didn't necessarily earn it in AEW yet. I feel for MJF. I understand, fight for yourself, because that's the world we live in. If you're not fighting for yourself, nobody else will. But there are ways of doing it. There are right ways, there are wrong ways of doing it. At least in my opinion, there are. And I don't necessarily think MJF's doing it in the right way. Now, let's be clear. We don't know what's real, what's not. They're doing a beautiful job of blurring the lines with this story. I do genuinely believe that there are grievances regarding money and other contract stipulations. I absolutely believe that. But I also think we probably got to a point where if the issues aren't fully resolved, they're at the very least a lot better than they were. And now we're in the middle of a work. We shot ourselves into a work. Go figure. I feel bad for any fan that paid money to see him. I don't think that's the professional way of handling that situation. And
that promo was so good, though. I would be thrilled to pay for that.
No, I'm talking about when he no-showed. I'm talking about when he no-showed at FanFest.
Yeah.
If I paid to see him and he wasn't there, I'd be pissed. I'd be pissed. And I think I have every right to be pissed. If I'm Wardlow, who was in the middle of this hot-ass storyline, I'd be a little pissed, because guess what? Nobody's talking about me. They're talking about MJF's contract and what he's going to do instead. Doesn't matter how dominant he looked. Didn't matter that was the match that we've been waiting for almost 2 years. All for nothing, because guess what? MJF's contract is more important. And I'm not thrilled with that. I'm not thrilled with that. And on a bigger level, if this is a shoot that got turned into a work, or let's say this is more of a work than we all think it might have been, you got to be careful if you're AEW, because right now, one of the big things you have is the trust and support of your fan base. If your fan base feels like it can't trust you the way that we have for all these years, and we're just going to get worked like constantly, on one hand, that's great, because, hey, it's wrestling. I want to be worked. I do. Even if we don't admit it, that's what wrestling is about. We want to believe what we're watching is real. But you got to know the balance of that. And let's see if they can toe that line, because it's going to be very difficult for them moving forward, I think. And I will say, if MJF's goal was to become even hotter than he was a week ago when he was pretty goddamn hot, mission accomplished. So I don't know what comes next for him, but it's probably going to be big.
I am very curious to see if he is on Dynamite next week, because obviously, for those of you who hadn't seen it, he cursed at the end of the promo. He called Tony a fucking mark, and they had to censor it on TBS. So I'm curious just to see, at least maybe if this is now a work, if he is on Dynamite, just to maybe get him off TV for a while and figure out where they're going to go from here, both backstage and on screen. But it's such an odd shift in dynamic between Tony and MJF. There are plenty of people who are like, yeah, they used to call each other all the time and work on storylines and stuff. And now we have this. And it's curious, Chad, like hearing that. It's like, okay, maybe this whole thing is a storyline. Maybe it's not. Like, I do genuinely think MJF wants more money, and I agree that he should be getting it. But now this is one of the best like shoot work blurred line things I think I've seen in a really long time. But that promo was so good, I don't care anymore. I'm so fucking here for it.
Okay, so because we are a podcast, obviously we have to try to speculate from all aspects. So I'll do the deep dive for sake of conversation. However, Rev, I'm with you. I hope this is fake, because this storyline and the build and that promo was so epic that I love it. But we gave Sasha and Naomi their fair share of shit, so we have to give MJF his fair share of shit as well. Speaking as an ex-manager to a few places, and also speaking as a disgruntled employee, I can almost connect with what he's saying. I know for a fact, even if this is a work, that there are elements of truth running all throughout this. So with that being said, the manager side of me says, I get it. However, you do not handle things this way. We cannot. You're going to be hot as fish grease. You're going to get backstage heat. You're gonna bubble and boil and become a bigger star. However, there are those, like James said, it's a balance. There are things that you don't do, and there are things that can be done. The meet and greet is really dickish. Like you don't do that to fans, regardless. You're already a heel. You already have heel heat, so people are not supposed to like you. The people that do like you and would like to meet and greet with you, you kind of have to show up for them. And also, like James was saying, when he first started and first signed the contract, he wasn't as had the potential, which is scary because still now I see that he has even more potential and he can be greater than this, which is not something a lot of people can say. But I mean, we know how this goes. You get a contract, you make yourself hot, you work that time, then you renegotiate. That's the professional way to do things. That's just how we do it. We understand that you want more money, you get a raise based on your performance. So yes, he absolutely deserves a raise. He deserves the money, yes, but you got to go about it properly. But then also, I get him being the biggest draw at AEW besides Bryan and CM Punk, and him getting paid peanuts. So I'm really in between with this story. Again, I hope it's a work because I like the output. I just don't like the dickish ways he's going about the outside politics.